Hey Mr. Vanasseldonk, so this is Urpana, and this component of my video gives the explanations for the 6 energy transformations that occurred within my Rube Goldberg machine. So to start off, I had a volleyball in my hands, and I placed it onto the ramp, which is essentially just a shovel that was angled upwards, and at that time the volleyball was at rest. But when I started my Rube Goldberg machine, I pushed the volleyball, as in I applied force, causing it to roll down the ramp. And when this happened, it gave off kinetic energy, because that ball, which was previously at rest, now gains acceleration due to my applied force, and thus a velocity as well, becoming in motion. Now I think this also includes gravitational potential energy, because of the fact that while the ball was placed on the ramp around 3/4 above, like on top, it was at a reference point to the surface of the actual shoebox, which meant that it had a certain vertical height, and when it was rolling down the ramp, it was losing that vertical height while also gaining kinetic energy. Now, when the ball rolled down the ramp and hit the next portion of the Rube Goldberg machine, that also was a transformation of kinetic energy, because specifically it hit the wooden brick, as I like to call it, that had a marker like at a horizontal placement attached to it, and that marker with the wooden brick that were combined together, that entire object was at rest. However, because of the force from the volleyball, that entire object gained momentum and leaned forward, thus going from rest to motion and causing kinetic energy. Now, when that entire object leaned forward, the marker, so the tip of the marker with the cap on it, it leaned forward and it hit the call button on the cordless phone that I had attached to a container. Now this is the third transformation of energy, but more so pertaining to chemical and electrical energy, along with radiant energy, because the chemical energy that was stored inside the batteries as the phone was turned on supplied the chemical energy to those electrical charges, and when I hit the talk button, or when the marker hit the talk button, those electrical charges were transmitted throughout the entire phone, supplying it electricity and allowing the call to go through, along with supplying radiant light energy because of this electrical energy, because I think it was very prominent in my Rube Goldberg machine. You could see the display of the cordless phone light up in a sort of neon greenish color, which was very well noticeable throughout the entire machine that happened. And this in itself was radiant light energy, obviously, because visible light was displayed as a result of the electrical energy. Now, the fourth energy transformation that occurred was within the cell phone. So when the marker hit the cordless phone and a call went through, that call went through to my own specific small cell phone. And when my cell phone received the call, it started to vibrate, as in it received it and the sound wave started to come through, and it caused waves of air pressure that traveled through the air. Now this is obviously sound energy due to the noticeable sounds that reached our eardrums, but this sound was also in a longitudinal wave because the direction of the energy flow was parallel to that of the vibrations. Now this entire fact of sound energy within my phone, due to the vibration particles and the vibrating of my phone itself, it also induced kinetic energy, surprisingly, within my cell phone. And this was actually a big part of my Rube Goldberg machine that I wanted to happen, as I thought it was a different and kind of unique idea. But moving on, to explain this further, because of those vibrations and the surface that my cell phone was on, which was essentially 3/4, I think, on top of a DVD cover that I had, it caused my phone to vibrate but also move forward. Now this kinetic energy that occurred within my cell phone was transferred as the fifth energy transformation within my Rube Goldberg machine to the tape roll that I had placed on the edge of the table. That tape roll, which was essentially at rest, now gained momentum and acceleration due to the applied force of the actual cell phone, and thus it rolled off the table. That obviously is kinetic energy because the object, the tape roll, was now in motion, but it's also gravitational potential energy because the tape roll was placed at the edge of a table that was relative to the reference point of the actual floor. but when it rolled off of the table, it hit the floor, as in it vertically fell down. And because it vertically fell down, that means it actually lost its gravitational potential energy because it was losing height, but it gains kinetic energy because there was now increased motion. Now, my sixth and final transformation of energy occurs when the tape roll was falling down on the ground and partially hit the cylindrical tube that I had with the water bottle attached to it. Now, that water bottle and that cylindrical tube, that entire thing was placed at a specific height in reference to the ground, giving it gravitational potential energy due to that specific height and the object's mass. However, when the tape roll hit the cylindrical tube with the water bottle attached to it, it created more so kinetic energy along with having it lose its gravitational potential energy because the cylindrical tube along with the water bottle leaned forward and fell forward, meaning that it lost its vertical height while also gaining motion because of the force that was applied. Now, this in total I think revolves more so around mechanical energy as well, because mechanical energy is when both gravitational potential energy along with kinetic energy are into play. They're the total sum, which I think was what the last energy transformation was more so about, because it involved gravitational potential energy, losing gravitational potential energy and gaining kinetic energy as well before hitting the ground. And I think that is it for all of my energy transformations. But just to mention one last thing, for the energy transformations that I was talking about, in particular, I think the ball placed on the ramp along with the tape roll falling to the ground, what I wanted to mention was that both of them included gravitational potential energy along with kinetic energy, which in my opinion makes it possible to find out the total mechanical energy. And thank you. That would be the end of my presentation for the transformations of energy.